Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the July meeting for the Jail Oversight Board. If we could all rise for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A couple of initial notes of housekeeping. We have joining us through Zoom. We have Judge Whalen, Judge Brennan, we have Jonathan King, and we have the Controller Joanne Phillips, along with who's here in front of us today. So we have just about all of our board. And then second item of housekeeping is we had an executive session yesterday to cover matters of personnel and safety and contractual. With that, the next item for today is the first round of public comment. And so if there's anyone from the public that would like to speak, please come forth to the podium. Please give your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Seeing no one. The next item is an approval of the minutes from June. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion for the approval of the June 14th.
Thank you, Ms. Love. Is there a second?
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next item is an approval of the reports from June. And is there a motion for approval?
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Brian. Any questions or comments on the reports? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. The next item for today is we have our County Facilities Director, Danielle Floyd, who was going to provide an update to the board and to the public with regard to the conditions of our facility. As we talked about at length, it is a facility that has quite a good deal of needs at this point, and I felt it, and we felt it important to get more color on that. So, Warden, I'm not sure if you want to give any more context before the facilities director speaks.
I just wanted to come up and support her because Danielle has been such an enormous support of our agency. And her department is another demonstration of how much wraparound has had to be provided to this institution by the entire county. You know, so deprivatization, I know, is something that everybody was looking forward to and was advocating for, but that has not ended. We continue to be a burden on a number of different departments, but we are so very fortunate and lucky that we have the expertise and partnership of Director Floyd and her entire team. And I just wanted to offer her a warm welcome and thank her again for being willing to provide this presentation for the board. She can do so far more eloquently than I can when it comes to facility needs. Thank you.
Thank you for that appreciation. It is very well deserved. Ms. Floyd, you have the mic.
Good afternoon. My name is Danielle Floyd. I'm the new director of Public Works here in the county, and wanted to provide the board this afternoon with the results of several conversations that my team has been engaged with Warden Williams on with regards to anticipated capital needs and capital expenditures for George W. Hill facility, and to also just provide you with an update on the status of those various projects for your awareness. I do want to also specify that these projects are in various stages of either being in concept or with design professionals, or planning to be assigned to design professionals. And we are required, our office will be working to submit the required agenda items for County Council for their ultimate review, consideration, and approval. So I just wanted to provide, I think Warden Williams did a great job of talking about, we really, our office and we exist to support and collaborate with the various department directors on their facility needs and understanding what their various investment priorities are. And so while our department is one of the stewards of the capital funds that are available to the county for investment, we very much rely on the expertise of the various subject matter experts to make sure that we're identifying the right priorities and making sure we're bringing those forward to council for review and consideration. And so when I joined the county, one of the first meetings I had the opportunity to have was with Warden Williams and her staff to talk about what the various needs were identified at Hill. And it was also qualified by an extensive facilities and condition assessment study that has been completed by KCBA architects at Hill. So we have a wealth of information and knowledge when it comes to the status and the condition of the various facilities on this property to begin to identify and prioritize the things that need to move forward. And so I'm very grateful, one, to her team and for her leadership, guidance, and direction on being able to work with us to really be clear about what are the immediate needs, but also thinking about how we begin to plan for the next 5 years in terms of investments at this facility. So in those conversations that we have been having, we were very clear or got very clear direction on critical projects that are required out at the George W. Hill Correctional Facility. And I will talk a little bit about each one of these in detail moving forward. I don't think I hope it will not be a surprise to the board that there are significant needs facility needs and investments that are required at Hill. Many of the systems are either approaching, have exceeded, or will be nearing the end of their useful life. And so this is the appropriate time, now that we have the completion of the condition assessment report, to begin to figure out how investments in Hill align with other additional infrastructure investments that we need to make here in the county. So my immediate focus in supporting Warden Williams with her work are these particular projects. The first is a permanent solution to address the domestic hot water system at George W. Hill, the electronic security and surveillance system, addressing much needed kitchen renovations, as well as an HVAC and roof replacement project. So about the domestic hot water, just go into a little bit of detail for each one of these, just to provide some context. We were contacted by the warden and her team with regards to the loss of hot water service at Hill a couple of weeks ago. Our executive director approved an emergency transaction to be able to bring on temporary boiler service, a temporary boiler onto the site to provide the necessary heating for the kitchen, laundry facilities, as well as the main processing area for Hill. We are currently renting that boiler for approximately $10,000 a month. That contract was approved by County Council at our May meeting, but that is not sufficient, and we need to move forward with a permanent solution. And so our team working alongside facilities as well as the team at Hill have identified been clear about it's important that we move forward with implementing permanent repair, and as well as to do that in such a way that allows us to get rid of this costly rental that we have at the site. So we have engaged, we have an on-call professional service contract that we can utilize for situations such as this. We've engaged an engineering firm who actually has extensive knowledge of several of the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems at Hill, fortunately. And we've worked to identify a solution in how to implement those in multiple phases. The first is obviously to get the permanent repair of the boilers back online so that the hot water can be provided in those areas that I previously mentioned. But the second and most critical function is that we need to address and implement and install a water softening system here. That is part of the reason why we are having the issues with the boiler burners that we're having. And so in being able to honor the warden's wishes about moving forward with a permanent solution, we're recommending moving forward with doing some necessary testing of the existing existing system there, of the existing pipes there, but also to install a water softening solution, which will help address many of the issues with the system we're experiencing right now. The second project is a very extensive project with regards to the security, electronic security and surveillance system. There was a previously approved contract that County Council approved in November of 2021 with Professional Systems Engineering to complete the necessary design documentation to upgrade and replace the necessary security and surveillance elements out at the Hill facility. If you may recall, they did an extensive assessment report identifying various needs with regards to the control room with the age of the different cameras and equipment, and provided that information to the county to be able to allow us to plan for construction for this and to do it in a phased way. So we have engaged with PSC. We just restarted our meetings with them to talk about critical project milestones, to talk about coordination. We brought in our IT department to make sure that we're coordinating and meeting the specification requirements from that perspective, and beginning to talk about things right now as well, that once the system is in place, how are we thinking about training for the employees? What are the things that are going to be important for the warden and her team to make sure that the system will be operational and functional? I think one of the complications with this project is certainly we need to be, given the nature that it is a secure facility, we have to think about how we properly phase this work moving forward, and working very closely with the warden and her team in terms of doing that. But we are beginning design. We anticipate having those designs finished by the end of the year, which is actually very exciting, and begin to be able to transition to making the request to approve advertising the construction and beginning to address the surveillance system at this facility. The third project is a kitchen renovation at George W. Hill Correctional Facility. Again, this was one of the first we had our first conversation to talk about the extensive needs that were here. This was raised because in October of 2021, during a Department of Corrections audit and inspection, the kitchen did not pass. And we will be having a second audit and visit in October of this year. And we want to be in a position to be able to demonstrate progress on addressing the renovations in this space. One of the small pieces of good news that I can share with particularly with this project is that the county Public Works had previously engaged an architectural firm and an engineering firm to put plans together to address the project here. And so while those plans are almost 2-3 years old, there's a possibility that we can just update them to make sure that they meet the necessary code requirements as adopted today. But that is a way for us to be able to accelerate and move that project forward rather than starting from scratch. So want to certainly be able to utilize information that we paid for and that we've secured, and use that to be able to begin our conversations with Aramark in terms of how this project will be constructed. And parallel to that conversation, having the discussions with the warden about how we would want to provide for food service while the kitchen is going to be down for the necessary renovations. The last project that I will cover today in terms of high-level priorities, I've grouped them together, and I'll explain why, is the HVAC and roofing systems at Hill are either at their end of their useful life or approaching. The roof is almost 20 years old and definitely needs to be replaced. It was identified as a high priority need in our facility condition and needs assessment that was completed. And the reason that we are looking at moving these projects forward in tandem is that we don't want to replace and put in new HVAC equipment on top of a bad roof. And so it makes sense to combine these projects together and phase the construction in such a way where new HVAC equipment new rooftop units can be installed while we're also replacing the roof at the same time. Because of the extent of this project and what it's likely to cost, it's likely going to be somewhere between the $14 and $15 million range, just given the amount of equipment and roofing area that needs to be addressed here. We are recommending or going to be proceeding with an RFP to bring on an architect and engineering firm to be able to carry out the design services for this project, and would like to bring this forward for county council approval towards the end of this calendar year, early part of next year. So those are just sort of the high level. This is where we are. Certainly there are way more needs than what have been. There are more needs, and I think that we are continuing to have conversations about as we plan for future years. However, in joining the county, this became very clear in working with the ward and her team that these are the items that need to be addressed, that absolutely, one, address the county's risk and liability, keep her staff safe and secure, keep the residents who are going to be there for the time that they're going to be there safe and secure, and allows us to protect the assets that we do have on that site. So I do thank you so much for your time and the opportunity to provide this update, and look forward to sharing more information with you as we proceed.
Thank you, Ms. Floyd. No surprise, but a very well-presented report on the facilities, and I'd open it up for questions from the board. Any questions, comments from board members? I think
it was a great.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Mr. King?
No, I just think it was a great presentation, and it was a long time waiting to actually hear it get to this step. They've been talking about redoing this prison for a very long time, and a lot of things have aged out. So I really appreciate the time that she has taken and the team has taken to actually look at this as in a real serious matter, because we do have human beings, living in that facility. So thank you so much.
Controller Phillips.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind everybody that these repairs and capital improvements really have always been our responsibility too. So I just want, for public or others watching, I mean, these repairs have always been ours. It's not something that we could have, GEO is not responsible for this. So at least for paying for it as we went along. So I just wanted to remind everybody that, and I do appreciate that presentation. It was really, very comprehensive. So thank you, Danielle.
I just had a question on the where it said duration of the projects. Is that plan like starting now or is that like, say they start the roof and then that's the duration when they start doing the project?
Oh, it's the entire duration for the project. Yeah, I think that's good. I think don't have my slides.
No, I just saw different, say if it said 32 months, is that 32 months from when they start? Or
yes.
Is that, okay.
Yes.
That's what I was
yes.
wondering.
Thank you. Yes. I apologize. Yes.
Thank you.
I just want to add, and I think it's important to know that these projects are actually funded in the county's capital improvement program. It's not going to be a matter that we design them, then we go out and look for funds. The county has already put the financial resources behind these as we get through them. So as we get through the design process, you will see us move to construction pretty rapidly.
That's a good point, Mr. Lazarus. And I think that's kind of where I wanted to go. So just procedurally, I think we're not really looking for anything besides directional questions, comments from the board today. But as each of these gets to a point of RFP, of awarding a contract, these will be things that come before the Jail Oversight Board first for your input, and then it will go to County Council for approval of a contract as well, or an RFP. But I think this is a really good, important check-in at this point in time. Anything else for Ms. Floyd, board members? Right.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
All right, we're at the Warden's report. Warden Williams.
Good evening. Thank you so much. And we also have a presentation for you. Thank you very much. for those in the public that aren't here or watching streaming, Sean is incredible, and he's how we are able to utilize technology so well. All right, so we typically start with a coronavirus update. And I'm not certain if we should continue doing these, but I do think that it's important and relevant to provide necessary updates. Some of you may or may not be aware that the CDC had published interim guidance for correctional and detention facilities at the start of the pandemic. So their first publication was in March of 2020. They most recently updated the guidance in May of 2022, and they are mirroring a lot of what we're seeing in the community now. So in terms of mask wearing within the institution, if you came for a visit today, you would see some people donning masks and some people would not, because right now with Delaware County in low transmission rates, which is also reflected within our institution, the masks are now optional for individuals. So we still strongly encourage them, especially in areas like intake, our medical unit where we have those that are most vulnerable, in our intake housing units as well. But again, those are optional, and that is a recent change within the institution. We've also been communicating this to visitors when they come. Previously, we had indicated that no person could visit at George W. Hill unless they were wearing a mask. We would provide them for them. When you come to visit the institution, you will see staff that have masks available. So if you do come to visit us and you would feel more comfortable wearing a mask, please let somebody know and they will be able to provide one for you right away. In the month of June, we had tested 115 incarcerated persons utilizing PCR tests, and 5 out of 115 were diagnosed as positive for COVID-19. All but 1 were asymptomatic, so not demonstrating any symptoms. We have 2 positive cases currently. Both are asymptomatic and progressing well. We did not conduct any vaccination clinics in the month of June, but we do have one scheduled for tomorrow. I'm sorry? Oh, I went ahead. This is what happens when you give me a remote. Help me out, Sean. Okay. We didn't conduct any vaccination clinics in June, but we do have one scheduled tomorrow. I believe we have 25 incarcerated persons who have requested a vaccine, and we'll continue to promote that within the institution. Since March 6th of 2022, 416 individuals who came to custody reported being fully vaccinated. So we have 32% of our current population is vaccinated. In the month of June, 2 staff tested positive, and we currently have 2 staff within their recovery process for COVID-19. And I did include, part of the summary slides that's directly from the CDC's website. It's very informative. They have a lot of information, and we do abide by their guidance and recommendations within the institution.
Can we just pause there before we go? Any questions, comments with regard to coronavirus and the actions of the jail? Board members? I would just point out, I think given the fact that the percentage vaccinated of our population continues to be much lower than the general population, while I appreciate that we're getting guidance from the CDC that says, when you're in low transmission rates, that this is what's suggested, I would still prefer that we really err on the conservative edge of our policies. And so I'm not saying that, it should be mandates across the board, but wherever there is an extra effort that can be made to strongly encourage mask wearing, particularly where we're in tight congregate settings, I'd ask that we do that, because again, that's a really low vaccinated population.
Absolutely.
And that we continue with the vaccination clinics as we have been.
We will absolutely continue, and your point is well noted. I think there are definitely some increased signage opportunities in education for areas where we cannot socially distance, for example, intake. So we can look into some investment there.
Yeah, I think we've seen firsthand, and jails across the country have seen how quickly coronavirus can spread within a confined setting like that. So I think we have to be just that much more like I said, conservative with what we do.
Thank you. Any other? I don't know why this It's me, but we'll pretend it's the remote. Monthly statistics for June. Our current population, so this is a July number, but our current population is 1,321 incarcerated persons. Of that, 1,097 are males, 173 are females, 40 are lodgers, and 11 are transfers. The Weekender program, which we've talked about a number of times, was suspended from April 5th until July 21st under administrative order, and that is currently in front of President Judge to determine whether or not that is worth an extension. Last month, we had 580 commitments, and you'll see that that is an increase in 537, which is also reflected in our overall population. So last month, we were under 1,300. We've been over 1,300 pretty consistently this month, and some days climbing even higher. We have reached nearly 1,350. So I just want to raise everybody's awareness for that. We have had 563 discharges. I typically didn't report this formally within the Jail Oversight Board meetings, but I do think that it is notable, especially because we do have intentions of increasing availability of recreation equipment as approved by the board. So recreation was completed on every housing unit or block every shift in the month of June with few exceptions. So you'll see that there were 3 exceptions in very specific areas related to security incidences that were going on. And once controlled, those units were able to get recreation. But because they weren't afforded that opportunity for the full duration of the shift, we counted it as a no rec. We had 2 separate major incidences within the month of June, and one of these I had reported during last month's meeting because it had happened very recently. The second one occurred on June 15th, and in both cases, unfortunately, an incarcerated person had lost their life. So we wanted to make sure that we reported that number to the board. We have additionally increased the number of shakedowns, pat searches, self-searches from May to June, and identified serious contraband within the facility 22 times. And serious contraband can be anything from a cell phone to narcotics or illicit substances or weapons. So before you, I have a slide that details a little bit of a history and a request. So Dr. Metzner is a psychiatrist. He's nationally recognized in mental health care, but also in correctional facilities. And he is motivated presently to assist Delaware County and George W. Hill Correctional Facility. He received his medical degree from the University of Maryland Medical School and completed residency at the University of Colorado Health Services Center. He's licensed to practice in multiple states: Colorado, California, New Mexico, and Pennsylvania. And he is willing to come to George W. Hill in person, do a site visit, review all mental health policies and procedures, our training curriculum, quality improvement or assurance meeting minutes, QI reports that have been done historically, specifically relevant to mental health care or behavioral health services, and would specially focus on suicide prevention efforts. He will conduct interviews with leadership, correctional staff, mental health, and medical staff, as well as incarcerated persons, to gain a better understanding of how policies might be applied or implemented facility-wide. The in-depth assessment would have 10 hours approximately of review of materials prior to his site visit so that he can get some contextualization of our facility, travel to our facility, and allow for 3 days of on-site assessment. He would then provide us with a final report and outcome following his consultation visit. All proposed services would be paid on an actual incurred basis at an amount not to exceed $31,000, and we would hope that he would be able to provide these services within August of 2022, but that would depend on the recommendation of the board and then further approval by county council. I had also previously sent his CV, which is pretty extensive, for your review, just in case there were any questions regarding his references or experience. So I'm not certain if anybody has questions, but we would be proposing this as a resource for the facility to utilize, and that is for your review.
Warden, are you? I see that it's a separate line item on the agenda. Would you like for deliberation and formal action to approve the recommendation now, or do you want to reserve that until later on in the meeting?
That is entirely up to the board. I wanted to make sure that there was transparency within the agenda because there would be multiple things proposed to the board and allow for the public to potentially make comment on those items. But the order in which we do that is at your pleasure.
Got it. I guess what I'm asking is, there isn't another point in your presentation where you're coming back to this.
No.
This is okay. Great. So I think just to start, with some background and context, as the warden presented, there were a few significant events of this past month associated with self-harm. And while this facility is in the early stages of the takeover from George W. Hill, it's absolutely, and I think quite obviously, a significant area that we are quite focused on is around the safety of our inmates and the various ways that self-harm can occur, the various elements that kind of contribute to that possibility. And so this is one of a number of items that we have discussed since last month and going forward. But it's, with the mindset that while we can't necessarily eliminate the possibilities, and they can't be in any jail facility, we have to do everything we can to reduce the likelihood that they occur. So with that general commentary, I open the floor for questions and comments from the board. Executive Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to acknowledge Mike Resnick, who made the outreach to Dr. Metzner based on his experience and knowledge. And in reviewing Dr. Metzner's background, he is very well qualified and is recognized as a national expert. So I think this is a good thing to bring forward and recommend to council for approval.
I know on my end is I appreciate you bringing that forward. I think, we talk a lot about bringing consultants in to do so many things, to the physical plant, and as we move forward at George W. Hill to really be that innovator that we're investing in behavioral health. Oftentimes that's put to the side in many things. So for us to really lead here in the county to show that we want to invest in mental health and be that, set that precedent. So it has my full support because this is something that is needed, across the board for people inside George W. Hill and to set them up for success when they transition outside of George W. Hill.
Other members of the board?
I really appreciate it too. I think it's a great step. I just wanted to make sure that from a local perspective in our surrounding areas, do we do a search? Is there a search process, right? Or is this just a person that we know? I've heard of his name. I've definitely seen his name on a lot of paperwork as well. I'm saying, did we look at other avenues or other people / agencies that provide the service that have this kind of same scale of work to make sure we're choosing the right person? And I don't know if there is a right person, right? To make sure we're choosing someone that can provide a service to the people in the county that could possibly save some lives. So I'm just curious, is there a search? That's my question. Or is this just a pick of a recommendation? And if we have someone local or in the surrounding areas, I think, is it possible to just make sure we don't miss no opportunities that's probably sitting right in our face?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Mr. King. And I'll offer a couple of thoughts to it. I guess first, the procedural answer would be that with regard to professional services of this sort, it is an exception to the county purchasing requirements that would require an RFP process and to bring in bidders and go through all of the necessary steps that we would have if we were, for example, buying, cleaning products or something like that. Secondly, given the fact that we have had recent events and that this is a service that, I think we can all agree is truly a life and death type service in bringing in national thought leaders in the area of secured facilities and making them as sort of self-harm proof as one can ever get. There really are not a lot of people out there that are truly sort of national level experts. And so just given the emergency nature of this, the fact that time is of the essence, I personally am in favor of moving forward with this person who has, like we heard from the warden, national level qualifications. What I'd also say to it is help from Dr. Metzner does not preclude us from getting, input from anyone near and far. So I think this board and the public has seen that we have taken a very, outside-in approach to the management of this facility. We welcome people from the community who feel they have something to contribute to their county jail. And so to your question, Mr. King, if there are folks locally who feel like they have valuable insights into how we can diminish the chances for self-harm in the facility, we want to listen to that. But I think it's incumbent on us to move forward as expediently as we can, and so that's why this is before us. One other thing I want to clarify: we talked about sort of mental health treatment, and that's definitely a part of this. But my understanding of what Dr. Metz would really do is it's really a holistic review that includes infrastructure, what bedding, what equipment is available to inmates. It includes review of procedures. For example, how frequently a particular cell has eyes and ears on it. Procedures around intake and assessment and all of it. So it really is a comprehensive review. It's not just a matter of, are we providing sufficient mental health services for those in need? And perhaps that was abundantly obvious, but I want to make sure that we all understand that.
Chairman Madden, could I make a comment?
Yes, Mr. Alsaye.
Yeah, we talked with CGL about Dr. Metzner and his qualifications, and CGL said that he is one of the leading experts in this area in the country, one of the best, not just locally, but nationwide. So I just wanted to pass that on.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think that points to the fact that this wasn't the first person who put their hand in the air. We said, sure, let's get some help. We did on a, sort of a expedited basis. We tapped into folks like CGL who have a national level scope of understanding of what the correction space looks like and who's out there.
Okay, I have two questions.
Yes,
One
Judge Brennan.
Is, can I speak?
Yes.
Okay. One is, Ms. Williams said that something was sent concerning his CV. I have received nothing. I'd like to see that before I make a decision. And number two, did this person contact Delaware County Prison, or how was this person? I understand CGL recommended, but did this person come and volunteer?
Or do you want to speak to that?
So I will resend the CV as number one and make sure that you receive that, Judge. And number two, I'm not certain if you've had the opportunity to meet Michael Resnick, but he is too an expert of sorts in the management of correctional facilities as well as community criminal justice needs. But he had reached out to Dr. Metzner. So we did the outreach. Delaware County was active in seeking this service from somebody who is nation renowned, and he did respond affirmatively to our outreach.
Okay, no, I'm not familiar with the person that you just mentioned.
Mike Resnick is I always stumble over the formal title that you have, Mike, but it's essentially he is a special advisor to county council on all matters related to criminal justice. He joined the county a few months back.
You say that Mr. Resnick then recommended this person?
That's correct. And Mr. Resnick, prior to joining us, was the director of public safety for the city of Philadelphia, as well as what was the actual title in Baltimore. Mr. Resnick is here, so he can help as I stumble through his his resume
Come on, Mike.
for purposes of answering the judge's question.
So as Councilman Madden said, I am the program manager for criminal justice for County Council, working directly for County Council on criminal justice matters. My previous experience, I'm a lawyer for 30 years, been involved in criminal justice, law enforcement, and corrections. I was the public safety director for the city of Philadelphia, served as the acting prison commissioner for the city of Philadelphia. I was the commissioner of pretrial detention and services in the city of Baltimore, which means I ran their city jails for about 6 years. So I know Dr.
Okay,
Metzner.
can you say that this is a new position that was created by county council that now you're working in?
Yeah, Judge Brennan, Mr. Resnick was introduced to this board, I believe, 2 months ago, or perhaps it was last month's meeting.
Right. May 9th was my
It
start
wasn't
date, Your
last
Honor.
month because I was at last month. I was not at the March meeting, so if it was the March meeting.
It would not have been the March meeting. It would have been
March
perhaps.
9th was my start date.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned his name, but this information was not conveyed. This is the first information that I'm receiving of this. So, okay, so a new position was created by county council in particular for this program manager for criminal justice. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, and the program manager for criminal justice, a new position that's been created by county council, and that person has recommended this Dr. Metzner.
Correct.
Mr. Resnick, who's before us, when doing his job of supporting all departments associated with criminal justice, he provided the
It's just the
recommendation
acronym.
of Dr. Metzner, whose CV was
He
distributed to you.
recommended Dr. Metzner,
Yes.
whose CV I do not have.
It's in your inbox, ma'am.
Well, it's not in my inbox because I just checked while you were talking about it. So I just checked my inbox.
We'll
As you know,
resend
we
it.
don't get every email that is sent. So I would appreciate seeing that before I make any decision on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor. Any other questions or comments from board members?
Yeah, this is Joanne. I just want to say that I think that bringing Dr. Metzner on is a really prudent response to the recent events, and I recognize that this person is supported by the warden, CGL, and Mr. Resnick, and I do think that I believe that I have seen his CV. That was in the package, I think, with all the materials sent to us, but there were a number of attachments. So, but I think it's just.
I actually checked all attachments. There was a separate email that said more attachments where none were attached, but it did say
Okay.
more attachments where none were attached. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm sure that they'll get that to you. I just want to say that I think this is a prudent response to, the incidents of self-harm. So I support it.
Your Honor, that should be coming to your inbox. It may be delayed because of the size of the email and the number of attachments, but you'll look for the PDF that is specifically titled Psychological Expert Dr. Metzner. You'll see my narrative in the first portion. The CV follows my narrative.
As we discussed, time is of the essence on this, and I will also offer up that the recommendation here would still necessitate a vote via county council. And so, Your Honor, I wouldn't want to presuppose whatever your vote would be on this, but if you wanted to conditionally support it with the understanding that if you, after further research into Dr. Metzner's background, if you changed your mind, that could be shared with county council before they made a vote to approve the contract
Yeah,
at next
thank
week's
you for
meeting.
that. I just checked my email again. It is not there. So
Okay.
you can go ahead and vote, but I will not be joining in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Any other questions or comments from board members? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the recommendation of the hiring of Dr. Metzner by the county.
I'll move that.
Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Sheriff Sanders. Motion is second. Any further questions or comments? And I do think if there's, I'm not sure you really went into, you did say it's going to be paid for on a per use basis, but is there an estimate of what the total cost would be?
Not to exceed 31,000.
Okay, I
So
think
we
you may
did
have said
build
that.
in additional just in case, he uncovers something within his discovery that would require a little bit more time for review, but not to exceed 31,000.
I have a question.
Thank you, Warden. Yes,
Will this board get to meet this individual?
I would
Either
certainly.
Zoom or live when he's on, I mean, I hate to waste the money while he's on site when he can be at your facility, but even via.
Yeah, it's a good question, Ms. Levy. I don't see any reason why we can't dig into his work, that there be some means of hearing from the doctor, whether it's, a presentation or
Based
I
on
think we can
his
find some format.
Based on his travel availability, so if this is further approved by County Council, I will be communicating those dates to you, and we can discuss with him either a pre-briefing, a post-briefing, something so that you have an opportunity to meet with him and express any additional concerns or questions you might have.
Yeah, it could be via Zoom or, but I think it's a very valid request. Anything else from the board? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion? Aye. Any opposed? And are there any abstentions?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. The motion passes. I believe it was 7-1. I'm sorry, 8-1.
Thank you. So I'm sorry because the presentation is going to be a little choppy. It will include some more proposals and some just information for you to receive. So,
And I'm sorry, let me just clarify my last statement. The motion passed 8-0 with one abstention by Judge Brennan.
okay. So our training academy has been full force, as we're aware, since the start of the transition. And we've had 9 classes complete the Cadet Basic Training Academy. Last month, you can see class 522 in that lower right corner. They completed and graduated on June 17th, and we will be celebrating our 10th graduation this Friday on the 15th of July. We had a new class of officers and support staff begin training on the 5th of July, and we have another class scheduled to begin on the 18th of July. And for anybody who is interested in seeking employment, just so that they can plan ahead before they join our team, we have classes that will be starting on August 1st, August 29th, September 26th, October 24th, and November 28th. And that's just remaining for this year. If we continue to have vacancies, we'll be scheduling those out for the year of 2023. I did so well advancing to this slide, and now I'm stuck. So I wanted to put a plug in, since we may have an audience listening in. We do have a job fair that is sponsored by Delaware County that's going to take place in Upper Darby. So you can see the information on the screen. It will be at Upper Darby Municipal Building on Saturday, the 16th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And we'll have many different departments that are represented. So I've included some of the, images on this slide and included the Sheriff's Department, because they too have openings and we support our sheriffs. So we're hopeful that individuals who are interested in full-time employment, there are a few part-time positions within the county that are available, but definitely seeking full-time employees. If you bring your resume to the job fair, it's my understanding that not just George W. Hill, but other departments will be able to complete on-site interviews as well, which may result in employment happening very soon. So if you would like to join the Delaware County team, we would love to see you on Saturday. This is another request that I'm putting forward for the board's consideration. So we are continuously evaluating training. And I think we've all learned that in any field of work, you can't continue to do the same things and expect different results. And the field of corrections has been evolving for quite some time, and we want to be at the forefront of that evolution. So there is, and I don't know if I'll be able to access this or if I'll need to tap Sean to help, There is a web link. It's a 3-minute video. We do not have to take time to watch this, but I can share the slides with the board definitely following this meeting. It's a YouTube presentation of what the Apex virtual reality simulator looks like. Now, there are a lot of benefits to this system, and being a psychology nerd, I can't help myself, but scenario-based training is one of the most effective ways for us to learn. Most of us can't be passive learners and have that really comprehend within our style or implementation of policy. We have to do, we have to experience. Virtual reality simulation allows for an immersive environment where the body is able to have a physiological response or reaction without there being any real threat involved. So it takes you through a number of scenarios, and community law enforcement utilizes this. They've been breaking into the field of corrections with this simulator. So as you can see, we would be the first in Pennsylvania, should we choose to elect to onboard this training simulation model. But it allows your limbic system, that's our fight, flight, or freeze, to be activated, and then you have to use your executive functioning. So you still have to learn while you're feeling that stress, while you're feeling the threat of somebody, or while you're attempting to de-escalate them because they are having a crisis and want to engage in self-harm. All of those things activate a very human part of us, and it's our emotional system. And as correctional officers or first responders, we are consistently working to override what our instincts tell us to enter the threat or get to the danger, and to make sure that everything can be stabilized and okay. But that certainly takes training. And this would allow us within our training academy to provide that experience without them engaging with another human. This is where they get to learn. This is where they get to make mistakes in a way where it's safe and supportive for them to do that. So he did pull it up, and maybe we could just play the first 30 seconds. I don't think it's going to work in this forum. And as correctional officers or first responders, we are consistently working to override what our instincts tell us to enter the threat or get to the danger, and to make sure that everything can be stabilized and okay. But that certainly takes training.
Put the bat down.
Lieutenant Jason Pate is a 26-year veteran police officer. To this day, he's still training this new technology, helping to avoid using lethal force.
So they really get to develop de-escalation skills, de-escalation techniques.
The state-of-the-art virtual reality program allows a variety of real-life training scenarios. Every element of every situation is customizable.
This is about as real as you can get without being there.
Members of the Citizens Review Board getting their chance to take a crack.
Hello, miss. How are you today?
Immersed in a virtual reality, they put themselves in the uniform, trying to de-escalate the situation, deciding if and when to pull the trigger.
I do not want to use force.
FMPD training all its officers on this new simulator, the same one they're giving me a chance to try out. Putting the goggles on, I'm jumping into simulation.
What's crazy, though, is the detail. The floor, I can see the reflection from the lights in the shooting range on the floor.
The first simulation of a disturbance in a grocery store ending peacefully.
Great job.
Thank you.
Real good. We need to hire this guy.
Thank you, Sean.
The second time around.
So the incredible thing about this is that they have over 200 different scenarios that are built within, I think it's 20 environments. And you can't repeat a scenario over, because there is somebody who is actually the individual that is the threat. You know, so one of the trainers works as that live person within the scenario base to make sure that we're always trying different strategies and learning from those experiences. What's even more incredible about this is that if we were to purchase this at George W. Hill, I have confirmed that The Sheriff's Department is welcome to utilize our system. Park Police can utilize the system. Any county entity is able to utilize it. And it's essentially a backpack virtual reality system that you set up in an empty room, and you're able to then conduct your training. So this would be a resource that I would be selfishly trying to procure for my facility because I really believe in it, but would want to extend this to other entities and law enforcement within Delaware County.
Warden, can you talk about the costs and, yeah.
Sure. So the Apex Officer Pro Training Simulator is typically $98,368, and that's a one-time fee, and there is no subscription costs with that. So if we were able to purchase this software, we would own it, and they would provide technical support to us. They are offering a First in Pennsylvania discount to our agency, which takes $50,868 off of the price tag and reduces it to $47,500. We would be seeking to get 2 different backpacks, and what this would allow for is to have increased training capacity. So you have, our current class of 10 individuals. 2 could be doing the simulation as the individual responding, and then the trainers could be working with those while the classmates are able to respond and take their turns, and we would be able to get more individuals in training. So that would be $35,000. They've also applied a First in Pennsylvania discount to that, which would deduct another $15,000. And the total overall for us to purchase with all of the deductions, the 2 sets, would be $67,500, again, as a one-time fee, no additional subscription costs.
And are there any necessary updates that we would expect in the future? Or?
They send updates right now, and all of their current members get those updates for free. They did indicate it's likely there will be a subscription base in the future. Anybody who purchases presently would be grandfathered in and would just get those updates.
Questions, comments from the board?
Yes, I have one.
Go ahead,
Comment.
Mr. King.
I've always said, since this whole journey, right, from one side to the other, that most of the things that are going on in Delaware County prisons are antiquated. I really appreciate the fact that Warden Williams is looking down the road. That's a big deal for me. And when we just talk about, we're not just talking about the prison, we're talking about a lot of things that are antiquated. And I really appreciate the fact that she's introducing us to the future. I love the concept and the idea, but I really love the idea that you're updating us with the 21st century, and it is well needed. So once again, for me, I have to say that this is different, and usually people are scared of different, but you're looking towards the future, which I think will be a benefit for the people working to keep our residents and their peers and co-workers safe. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. King. Executive Director Lazarus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Warden brought this up initially when we were looking at submissions to our delegation in Washington for community project earmarks. Unfortunately, this did not get forwarded because of some of the other priorities we brought forward. But in looking at the financial deal that the warden is bringing forward now as opposed to then, this is much reduced for greater capacity than what we initially presented to council, and council did agree with those items that we had.
I can't hear a word you're saying.
Is this better? Your Honor, can you hear me now? My comment was we had initially.
Now I can.
I'll continue. So we had initially brought this forward as one of the requests for a grant under the federal earmark program. It was not brought forward by our representatives, but the the cost that you see in front of you is less than what we initially presented to council when we asked to submit those grants. I think the benefit of this far outweighs the cost, and we'll be able to find a way to finance it either through the existing budget of the prison, or when we come back and look at amending the budget later this year. So I strongly support this.
No, to be clear, it would be, the source of funds would be the general fund via the budget of the prison.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
I just wanted to add a comment is, I've talked to some police officers here in Delaware County that have participated in similar virtual, and the feedback was what an amazing experience that was. And I know for me, just being on this board and having the opportunity the last 2 years to finally get to this side, this was the goal. Once we got to this side in Delaware County running this prison, was to be innovative, to be creative, just as we talked about with the behavioral health. And when we talk about training, so we're asking for the very best candidates to work within our facilities. And to get the very best candidates, we have to offer the very best training. And there is no price that can be put on that anybody can see long-term of what efficient and appropriate and above and beyond training does to avoid liability and different things that can occur when individuals don't receive that training. So, and I just know as I'm hearing that amazing discount is the first facility in Pennsylvania, I know, somebody watching this, that if we don't take advantage of that, somebody else is going to be the first facility in Pennsylvania to get that discount. So these are the things that, we promised as a board as we were moving forward to really to make George W. Hill Correctional Facility, that innovative, moving forward thinking facility. So I'm glad that you brought that here tonight. It has my absolute full support. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Corson.
I don't want to echo the comments made by my fellow board members, except to say I support our participation in purchasing this pro-training simulator, and thank you for bringing it before the board.
Thank you, Sheriff. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, I have a comment, just that I am interested to the extent that it is covered by the budget already. And I also was going to say that I do think this should be offered to the sheriff, to our sheriff and his people. And I would, hearing Sheriff Sanders, then I can support it if he does.
Yeah, and if it hasn't already happened, I want to make sure that the purchase, if it goes through, is certainly made aware to the park police so that they know that they have the opportunity. And what would that timeline be?
Approximately 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Great. Anything else, board?
Do you have written pricing from them, from the other sources?
Yes. I had submitted those with the last time that this was presented to the board, and I can resubmit if that's required.
I asked the questions just to confirm publicly that we've complied with the county's procurement requirements.
Yeah, and if this is going before county council at that time, given the fact they haven't seen it yet, I would include all the
absolutely
bids. All right. If nothing further, I'll entertain a motion to recommend the purchase from what's the name of the vendor? Zorro.
Motion.
Second.
Second from Mr. Lazarus. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Thank you, Warden.
Sean, can you help me? Thank you. So we did talk about the previous approvals that came before the board, and I think that we can definitely, this is 1 month of data, and we can continue to report on this as well as, contributing factors. So we discussed the booking processing fee, the restitution charges for damaged property, and that was property that was manipulated or damaged not from the general wear and tear or utilization of items, co-pays for healthcare services, and withholding monies that were less than $1 when somebody is discharged. If their account had less than $1, the $7.15 recovered went into the inmate welfare fund. So the remainder of the items went into the general fund. And with the exception of the $7.15, the total funds recovered were $38,530.67 that went to the county general fund in the month of June.
Pause there. Any questions or comments from the board? I think when we first passed the motion to support the reinstatement of the booking fees and the creation of these fees, I think we made clear that we wanted to see how they would play out in practice. And I think the amount of money that is being brought in is only one component of it. I think with regard to the booking fees, they were reinstated because we essentially felt that as a board, they were temporarily suspended for purposes of COVID. And given the reduced threat, we really didn't have, with visitations coming back online, any justification to continue that threat, or that suspension. I would still welcome some work on what the right number is on a permanent level. And if there's going to be a change, I think there should be a recommendation by this board that would go before county council in light of the fact that it has budgetary implications. But that, to me, is still an open item. And I think it's something that we can look at from a benchmarking perspective, look at other counties and what they're charging. I think we did get some information about that. But again, I'd look for the warden, for Mr. Resnick, to give some thoughts around what might be brought forth for consideration to this board.
Absolutely.
And then with regard to the copays, if there's any color that we have around that, and for whatever is appropriate in this forum, with regard to in practice, have there been complaints? Have there been instances in your view where it may be questionable or gray with regard to whether the service that was asked for was necessary? Because as a reminder, these copays, my understanding is they're only for situations where the opinion is that the request for service wasn't necessary. I don't know, what was the right?
No clinical justification for utilization of services.
So at just under $400, I think they average about $5 per. So we're talking about less than 80 circumstances throughout the month, which isn't a lot, fortunately. So I don't know if you have any other color around how that's played out.
I think that during next month's meeting, we can talk about contributing factors for all of these things and maybe present again in terms of the booking processing fee. So the average was 30 if you take all of the counties that reported, but some were exceeding $350. So we can probably put together what is contributing to all of these different cost recoveries so that you can make the most informed decisions moving forward.
Thank you.
Okay, so some more asks coming up. And before we get into these sections, we've talked so much about the excitement and innovation. And one of the other things that I think that this board has always been supportive of and very vocal to me, even from the start of the hiring process, when I was interviewing, there was a talk of investing in the institution, investing in the employees. And I think that there are many behaviors that Delaware County did a long time ago that show that. And one of them is the drastic increase in hourly wages for the majority of our facility that was several dollars an hour more. We too feel very strongly about our employees, and we want to continue to promote positive behaviors. I truly believe that the people working in the institution are some of the best that I've worked with in the field. They're incredible, they're dedicated, they are continuing to find solutions to problems even though resources have been limited, and they get so excited when they have the opportunity to try something else. So I believe in this next couple of requests very strongly. I will say that we're going to do them to some degree, even if there isn't a monetary value or benefit, because I think it's important. But I wanted to at least preface that a lot of my willingness to bring this to the board is because of the attention and support that you've given not only to me, but to every employee that I represent in the institution. So In our facility, we have incredible staff who represent and embody our institutional core values. And since the transition, we've been accepting nominations for Employees of the Month and awarding 2 employees each month with this honor. July, I'd like to announce and congratulate Correctional Officer John Smarcola and Reentry Case Manager Jessica Delvicio. We've also had past Employees of the Month, which I've named here, which were Joe Grosso, Alan Dua, Johnny Kay, and Robert Rollins. So we've been acknowledging these individuals. We provide them with a certificate for both their personnel file, because personnel files are not just for what negatively happens, it's for what we do well too, so that we get a comprehensive picture of our employees. They also get their own certificate, and then they're able to park in the designated Employee of the Month parking space that we have. So we have 2 of those. But we would like to implement a little bit more. And to do that, because there's a financial implication, we need your support and input. So we would like to implement and retroactively cover a $100 bonus payment to Employees of the Month. This program would cover 2 Employees of the Month. County and contracted staff are eligible for 12 months at a cost of $2,400. We would like to propose an opportunity to additionally recognize Employee of the Year. So at the end of the year, not to exceed 5 employees, but up to 5 employees could be awarded. They would not have to have been an awarded Employee of the Month previously. Maybe there's somebody in the month of December that just completely blows our socks off, that they deserve this award. They could have been a previous Employee of the Month, and they would receive $500 as an Employee of the Year, as well as the certificates of recognition. And the total of that program would be suggested not to exceed $2,500. For both programs, we would be designating a not to exceed amount of $4,900 annually, and this would be something that I would like, if we support this and move forward, to occur from here on out within the institution.
Pause for questions and comments.
I believe that the certificate in the note in the personnel files, along with the parking space, is sufficient.
Thank you.
I don't support these bonuses.
Thank you.
Executive Director.
I also have comments on that too. I also believe the recognition is very good. The parking space is excellent. I would also make sure we're getting their names in the county newsletter. I know our PR department's always looking for articles and updates. The reason I can't support the monetary award, at least at this time at all, is I'm not convinced that it retains or attracts people, and I know that's what our main focus is. And also, right now, I think that the amount, we really have to come up with a method to do it, because it's going to go in payroll. It's going to be another burden on payroll for some kind of payment that will be taxed. So I'd rather, if we're going to do this at some point in the future, I'd rather have some more time to look into it to see whether there's a better way to do it. So that's really my main thing. But I also think that, we don't do it in other departments. We don't do it across county, and there are many people that deserve recognition. But I do recognize the environment at the jail warrants this kind of recognition in personnel files and for publicity across the county. So I'm in line with what the sheriff has said.
Executive Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When Warden and I spoke about this, I asked her to bring forward a recognition program. Monetary awards, to the controller's point, also are going to need some sort of approval from the county's personnel board due to the administrative code. But I think having this on the table to discuss is important. I appreciate Warden bringing it forward. I would rather, Mr. Chair, that we take the time and talk more through this and have a negative vote on it. But I do support the monetary award. I think having enough of a small bonus to take a family member out to dinner is a nice recognition. I know in past lives that when we implemented it, it did mean a lot, not necessarily because of the dollar amount, but because of the significance of showing some appreciation. Also, one of the things that we've talked about in personnel more largely is some sort of recognition program across the county. Someone has to lead that effort. I think the warden's done that, but I think it's important and significant that she brought it forward. If members of the board would like some more time to consider it, I'd appreciate then let's table this until we can have some internal conversations, certainly with Ms. Phillips as a controller and some of the other county leaders.
Thank you, Howard.
I would echo with, what Mr. Lazarus was saying is, just because something's been done one way for an extended period of time doesn't mean we need to continue to do it that way. So again, thinking innovatively and an opportunity to show staff and to start it somewhere in the county. And if that, were to go somewhere else, that's wonderful. But I definitely do support it. Coming from the private sector, it's nice to get recognition. But in the, day and age right now of a lot of costs going up for a lot of things, it's also nice to get a financial, incentive. And a lot, sometimes that can be a motivator, or it can just be, a job well done for somebody who's going to be doing it anyway. But I think thinking outside the box, being creative and doing things different is one of the goals as we're moving forward. So definitely has my support.
If I can just offer comment to that. I read an interesting article today, and you brought out the highlighted differences between public and private sector work. And I'm not saying that Employee of the Month is what differentiates us, but we do tend to do the same things over and over again in government work. And interestingly, private sector has reduced their job vacancies, and it was reported that they have no really, impacts anymore. And that in the public sector, there's 41% vacancies nationwide of 910,000 jobs, government public sector jobs that are vacant right now. So it is a competitive market to try and show employees who continue to show up for us, because if the government stops working, it impacts all of us, and finding ways to acknowledge them. So thank you for highlighting that there is a difference.
Yeah, and I guess.
Go
ahead, Mr. King.
I just wanted to say, just looking at it from that, from the whole perspective, maybe we can give them a gift card. I understand both sides of where it's coming from. But I'm gonna tell you, just as me being an entrepreneur myself, I know that when you show, you got to give people incentives, right? And when you go above and beyond and different, I think employees appreciate you more when you show that you value them, right? I mean, the economy is rough right now. And if you get a gas card, you're jumping up and down. And I just think that, I think, dangling that little carrot in front of them may be a great incentive for them to show up every day, to do their best, and to be competitive in a good way, not as adversaries, but as allies, inside the institution, to make sure the residents that are there for that temporary stay feel like people are being professional.
Thank you, Mr. King. For my part, I think what I'm hearing is a consensus about the general idea for it, and the fact that we want to create a structure for celebrating our best employees. But I think there are some concerns, both logistical in nature, about the financial incentive program, as well as from a, I guess for lack of a better way of saying, a fairness perspective with regard to other departments. And I'll add another one, which is I think if you add in an actual cash reward, I'd be very interested to know how employees were being selected. I think it would start, if it's a parking spot, that's important, it's a good gesture, but I don't think you'd necessarily have other employees who might feel like there might be favoritism going on with regard to an individual payment. So I think there's a lot around this one that I think is worth further consideration before we bring it forward. What I'd ask you, Warden, is I do hear a consensus, and perhaps I'm wrong, about the non-monetary elements of this program, and I think we could probably put forth a motion to support that. Or if you prefer, we can table the whole thing and let this get flushed out some more.
There's one more slide that has
Sure.
to do with awards, if Sean can help me in advance, and then maybe we can comprehensively put all of those in there. But the Employee of the Month, we've been doing that since the transition, and I have every intention of continuing, at least the program as it stands today. The other option that we have, go back one, is employee recognition. So this is something that happens more immediate. It is for an event or an outstanding job that was done in the moment, so that you can provide that positive reinforcement as close to the stimulating event as possible, so that people associate reward with doing a good job. Classical conditioning at its finest. So within this program, we have a couple of different types of awards that somebody could be given: a team player award, a result-driven award, an above and beyond award, or a good catch award. And I like the term good catch. It was given to me by one of my colleagues in previous employment. We talk so much about near misses, which is just so negative. We have good catches, and we want to celebrate good catches when maybe somebody realized a mistake was made and we did the right thing anyway. So we've put together, some of these different awards. We would like to be able to provide those as close to the event as I had said during roll calls, so that peers can give recognition as well. And I do appreciate what Mr. King offered. I think there is a competitive spirit. Most of us like to hear our name in positive ways, and you want to be part of that. So we want to encourage and promote that cultural change and recognition within the institution. Too frequently, we find out what we've done wrong and not enough of what we've done well. And that's what I want to continue to promote in the employees at George W. Hill.
And we're just so I understand what you're proposing here, because you have at the bottom, you have certain value structures. What is the actual award?
So the award would range from, again, there would be a certificate, an announcement at roll call. We would have either, a $25 or a $50 increment for something. So 50, we just put in a large number that we could potentially give this, because I believe my employees will, but mostly because we do have some significant events. So one of the officers that was named Employee of the Month, and I'll just share this, he was named as such not only because he's dedicated over 40 years to law enforcement in the field of corrections and has served this county for that length of time, which is just incredible. But you would never know in his action that he spent that length of time in the institution. A lot of people, as they near, towards the end of their career, or when they've been in places, they are seeking positions that don't require them to do the same level of work that somebody who just joined the force might have to do. He is constantly moving, and he participated. It was because of his action that we recovered a large amount of illicit substances, narcotics, that were being introduced on a person when they came into commitment. And it absolutely, his action, his attention to detail saved lives. I can say that with every part of my body believing it. What he did was life-saving, and that is why he was named one of the Employees of the Month. So an act like that would be an immediate award of $50 because it was so critical. Somebody who maybe stops somebody in the act of self-harm, I want to acknowledge and celebrate that person and give them a higher level award. Somebody who finds, illicit contraband during a PAT search, maybe that's 25, depending on the amount that they found or recovered. But instances where we're making the institution safer, where somebody could have, done their job but not done it to the best of their ability, we want to really celebrate when we go above and beyond.
Thank you, Ward. Again, I think there's a general, what I'm hearing is a sign of support around the general concept of recognition, but I think when it gets to the cash piece, I think it probably needs a little more fleshing out. So unless there's a member of the board who, Executive Director.
Mr. Chair, I appreciate the feedback, and I think Ward and I can sit down and work through more details. I would remind everyone, though, that the county does get tickets to Philadelphia Union games, and we have used those for team and individual recognition in the past as well. But I think feedback is well received, and I'd like to work with Warden on bringing back some more refined maybe a program that'll meet they'll address the questions that were raised, and we can have that discussion. So I would actually favor allowing the warden to continue what she's doing without the cash awards. Then we'll bring the cash award recommendation back at the next meeting.
Yeah, I think, honestly, I think the non-monetary part, Warden, I think you can just do without any formal action. Is there anything else on this topic from the board?
I would just like to add, I'm from an environment where recognition is recognition, and either monetary or a large gift card or something may have been done on an annual basis versus this incremental monthly, because I heard Joanne speak to just administering that as one problem, and then without really an outline of what the person's being judged for, or again, it's for, because it's positive. So I think to give something maybe once a year makes it bigger. I don't mean the award, I mean it's more of a recognition, and maybe clarify the judging elements to be able to receive such an award, as opposed to, I think, Chairman, you made mention of we might get into trouble if it's not clear or it's not concrete what the judgment is. But I think it's a great start. I think it's a great idea, and maybe, if we can do it through the county versus just one segment, but make it maybe an annual award or something like that. That's just my comments.
Anything else from the board? All right. Thank you, Board.
Thank you. So this one it's more money, but it is different. So this is an employee referral bonus. So this is not necessarily recognition in the way that we just discussed it, but I am a firm believer that those of us who are happy in our places of employment will typically talk about it, and those of us that are unhappy will also typically talk about it. But a lot of things have changed. And for any employee that's listening, that's not for me to say that we don't have a ways to go, and we're still working on it, and we know that there are challenges and struggles, and I've certainly not met all expectations just yet. But I think that our employees are significantly happier with a lot of different things, maybe not everything. So we would like to encourage employees to be direct referral sources for future employees at the institution. And the terms of this would be that current employees who provide direct referrals for correctional officers specifically, because that is our largest vacancy and our largest need, would be paid a $2,000 employee bonus payable on a schedule. $1,000 would be paid to the employee that made the referral after the new employee has completed their basic training academy and 6-month probationary period. And then the second installment of $1,000 would be made after that employee is still working within our institution for 12 months. We would want individuals who are applying to declare who their referral was from. They will have the opportunity to do that either at time of application or when the job offer is extended, but it must be provided prior to them coming onto facility grounds and training. And there are some employees like myself that would be exempt from receiving this bonus referral. Same with hiring managers or HR staff. Any of us that might be working at any of the job fairs would not be eligible to receive the referral bonus. But our hardworking employees that are recruiting for us should get some recognition and support. So we would be requesting, if this was approved, that the program would continue until June 30th of 2023. That gives us a full year. And though I hope we'll have all vacancies filled by that time, I did just talk about the lack of public sector employment opportunity, or there's plenty of opportunities, but very competitive market that we want to be realistic in our ask as well.
Thank you, Warden. So you're looking for a motion of support from the board?
Yes, and then a further review by council would be required.
Yeah, I think it would, and I think also there may just be some logistical elements that would need to be fleshed out with personnel, with the controller's office. So, I think this board could provide a recommendation subject to those, concerns being worked through, if that's the will of this board. Are there questions or comments from board members?
My only comment is I think that amount is too high. I think $500 would be more appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Other thoughts?
Judge, could you repeat yourself, please? I didn't hear you.
She wants it to be half as much. She's looking for 500 instead of, I'm sorry, 1,000 instead
Yeah,
of 2,000.
500, not 2,000.
Judge, just to be clear, it's 2,000 in the warden's proposal. You're saying half as much would be 1,000.
No, $500.
So 250, and so a quarter of as much.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
I would like to see both points checked. Application, at the time of the application, the employee gives notice that this was their referral, and if the job is offered, not at the time the job is offered, but at the time of the application plus the job offer, but not at the time the job is offered.
Is that right?
Yes. Those would be the 2 points. Their final opportunity, should they have said, oh, when I was applying online, because that can be a fickle system, I missed it, but this employee referred me, where we would allow for them to, at the time of their offer, state that, but the preference is that they automatically mark it on their application.
I don't agree with that because I don't see us taking the chance that there's an opportunist that knows a job is going to be offered to someone and then make that claim that they made the referral.
Okay.
Make sure I understand the concern. Sheriff, you're saying your concern would be that an opportunist might put their name in via the new applicant.
If you were the applicant,
yep,
and I didn't know it, but we know each other, and at the time, through our conversation as friends, you let me know that you've been offered a job at George Hill, and at that time, I say that I made the referral. That's after the fact.
So the referring employee would never be part of the process. The employee who is applying would have to identify somebody who's currently working.
At the time of the application.
At the time of the application. And my recommendation was that they would have a final opportunity, when HR calls them to provide a conditional offer of employment, that they could state this employee.
I don't agree with that final opportunity.
So it's both or nothing.
They fill out the application, be it online or whether they come in and fill out a paper application. At that time, state who referred them.
Okay.
Thank you, Sheriff.
That makes sense. It's going to save you a lot of money.
Because I think the concern is that they will have had an opportunity to be, involved with many of the COs, and there may be COs who say, hey, put me in here, and perhaps they might say, I'll split the referral bonus with you.
Definitely.
Any other comments, questions from board members?
Mr. Chair, I think I'd like us to clarify what it is that's going to be recommended to council. From my hearing of the discussion, what I would offer is that at the time that the incentive would be only eligible at the time that the application is submitted per Sheriff Sanders' recommendation and Mr. King's discussion. And then I would propose that we go ahead and split this and say 500 and 500 would be my recommendation.
I would not be in favor of changing the amounts that are brought forth. I don't know. I think I don't want to be penny wise, pound foolish here. And it's a known issue nationally and locally around the challenges of hiring, and particularly with regard to the area of corrections. And so if, $1,000 gets us someone who's going to be, at the very least, I think the requirements are 6 months, is that right?
6
6
months
months of
and
being
then
a
a
corrections
year.
officer, I think that's money well spent. And I think if it's, $2,000 bonus gets more engagement by our staff to recommend people, I would do it.
Is Mr. Alsea still on the call? Is Majid still there? Majid, do you remember what we heard when we were talking to Bucks in Montgomery and Chester County about their incentives?
Incentives at the neighboring counties went up as much as $5,000 as bonuses for bringing on employees. I don't recall whether they were offering referral bonuses at those counties. I will say that where Delaware County is currently with its pay, and even with the bonus, it is behind Chester County, Berks County, and Bucks County. So it's competing with those counties for employees, and I would argue that it needs to do more to attract candidates. The rate of candidates that are being brought forth has dropped. This would be a good step towards opening up another avenue to attract candidates to be correctional officers. I fully support this personally.
Thank you.
I have a question, Warden. So, because you mentioned about filling it out online, is it easy to miss? Like, the referral, is it a little box you're clicking? Is it something you're writing in? I'm just, my concern, because excuse me, I understand everybody's concern, with that, but I do know that it's going to be very important that if it's application only, that it's really communicated very well to staff, because initiating a program, somebody forgetting to click that box, and then that person being told you're not getting this bonus that we said you could get, can really damage morale. It's sometimes better not even initiating a program if something like that happens. So I just wanted to make sure that, it's communicated very well, and then on the online application that it's something that is very noticeable, so it's not easily missed and those situations don't occur.
So thankfully, we would work with the IT department within the county to make sure that we definitely highlighted the area on the application. And so just for clarification, if you guys do support the eligibility requirements, I would just be eliminating the second bullet that says if the applicant fails to declare the referring employee on the application, they must make a written notice to Human Resources. So I would be eliminating that. We would make sure that it was highly visible on the application and could proceed forward that way.
Yeah, and personally, I'd be okay with, we're really getting to the weeds on this, but 24 hours, like, you buy an airline ticket and you got 24 hours to cancel it, I'd be okay with that. If someone submits their application online and they forgot to click the button, but it's clearly an oversight in the first 24 hours or so after they submit their application, they can talk to HR and say, look, I meant to include someone. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, required field. Thank you.
So the required field on the application. All right, any other thoughts on this before we perhaps put forth a motion?
I just heard something that our salaries are not quite with our neighboring counties. Should we possibly consider an uptick in that versus this, which I see as a one and done, and it's a shorter time frame, a shorter remembrance that, well, I just got bonused, versus increasing the salaries, which over long term would make applicants want to apply?
I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think we could bring this forth as a good initiative without precluding further consideration of this board to make further adjustments to salary. But I just think on its own merits, having an incentive program where we are harnessing employees that are currently here and like what they're seeing and have friends and family who they think would be a good addition. I think that's something that regardless of what we do on pay, both in salary and bonus, I think this is a good idea personally. So I think it's a good point, Ms. Love, and I would welcome, if we want to make further considerations about another adjustment, I'd be okay with that. But I think we can move this forward independently since it's before us.
I would remind the board that anything we do is going to have to be taken up in the collective bargaining agreement as well. So it's good to have clarity on these things now as we enter into those negotiations. So to the chair's point, the salary scale will be something that we look at during negotiations with the annual adjustments. Any incentives also need to be included in the CBA. So the board's direction on those things in a timely manner would be really helpful.
I just have one other question. If we understand the collective bargaining piece, so obviously that's not an action that it could be immediate, where this could be. Just so we don't lose sight of this, if all positions or a high percentage of positions, pick a number, get filled, and then an increase in salary comes, is there like an annual review of policies such as this? So in 3 years, we're not still doing this when all of our positions are filled and the raises are there?
I think that the proposal that you brought forth, Warden, had an expiration date on it.
This one does have an expiration date, but I would agree. So we are doing a sign-on bonus, which is the same amount. So if an employee signs on, they still get the $2,000 bonus. If an employee referred them, they would get that $2,000 bonus. That's what we're proposing. But we should continuously evaluate all of the initiatives as we're working to reduce vacancies.
Is there a motion from this board?
I'll make the motion.
And specifically, what is that motion? So it would be to support the recommendation by the warden for this proposal, with the amendment being to remove that one line that gave a second bite at the apple, so to speak, about naming a referee?
That's correct.
I'll second that.
So motion and a second. Any further questions or comments on the motion?
I have a comment.
Yes, sure.
I would just like to amend the motion to have a review period, maybe a 6-month review of this bonus.
Sure. Well, look, I think the reality is that at any point we can choose to terminate the program. If you'd like to sort of say just right now, to the warden, in 6 months' time, let's take a look at how this is performing.
Yes.
I don't necessarily even need to really vote on that. I think that's a good statement.
All right.
Any further questions or comments?
Just for clarity, we're saying the 2,000, but in 6 months, we will relook at it, not next June, correct?
Yes.
That's what we're going to vote on. Okay, thank you.
I think there was a comment from our virtual groups.
Yeah, I just had a question or just a comment that I assume that it's then again subject to the budget that's in place now. And if it's going forward, that it would have to be budgeted for next year.
Yeah, again, I think these recommendations, they require further approval, right? They will require the actions of the personnel board. And so before that occurs, a lot of these sort of details can get worked out. But I think what's important here is there something that this board supports as the overseer of the facility? Any further questions or comments before we call the vote?
I just want to make it clear then that I've supported in concept because I do think this could attract candidates, but if there's no money for it, I'll speak out at that point.
Understood, Controller. I agree. If there's no money for it, I would also not support it. Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
And any abstentions? The motion passes 8-1, with the one nay being Judge Brennan.
Okay. I just want to pause and thank you guys for your attention. This has been a long one. Hopefully we'll fly through the next slides with just a lot of information that I think is really relevant and exciting that's been going on within the facility. So I'll finish up my portion and then I will invite Deputy Warden Falley to this podium so he can provide some program updates. But On your screen, you have images of, on the left picture is our 3 trainers, and on the right is our 4 participants from George W. Hill Correctional Facility. So on June 23rd, we went to the 911 Center, and this was a program that was hosted by District Attorney and brought into the emergency center, where many of us spent the day discussing a number of different things and concepts. So HERO is the training, and it's helping emergency responders overcome. And I added some of the takeaways because I feel like this is a public forum and it's important to get this information out there. And I do want to offer a disclaimer that these are not my words. This is from Miramont Training Center, and I did give them credit on this slide. But oftentimes, and we talked about this with the Apex simulator, first responders are trained to suppress our emotional response system and take action and do the life-saving measures or put ourselves in danger. It's when firefighters run into a burning house, which most sane individuals don't do. You run away from a threat or fear. And these individuals, first responders of any kind, are consistently putting their lives second and your life first. So they're always the first to respond and typically the last to seek help. Emergency responders have unique cultural norms that allow them to function individually as a team during high-stress events. And oftentimes, we don't always do the best job in our field at taking care of each other. You know, so we might recognize that somebody's not okay, and we don't really say it because you don't talk about it, and we just need to get through it. We all have rough days, things like that. Sometimes there's fear that you admit, if you admit that you need support, that people might question whether or not you're capable of doing the job anymore. And a lot of first responder positions are volunteer-based, and so they're doing it because they really want to, not because there's any financial incentive. So what an enormous loss it would be if somebody believed that they couldn't do the work anymore. And of course, stigma still exists that mental health issues are a sign of weakness and or failure. And as we continue to talk about the changes in George W. Hill, mental health is not just for the incarcerated persons in our care. It must be for our employees as well. Healthy employees will do the right things. So with that, I'd like to introduce an initiative, and Mike Young, if he's still listening and hanging with us virtually, I wanted to make sure that I gave him a shout out and credit. He has been working with us at George W. Hill on a special project, so to speak, and it is a holistic view at employee health and wellness. He's been engaging our employees because they are subject matter experts into identifying what some of their needs or barriers might be. He's providing a confidential space in which they might be able to do that so he can assist in connecting them to resources. And the mission statement for the program is a revision of the mission statement for the facility. So the George W. Hill Correctional Facility provides a safe, secure, and humane environment for our well-trained and experienced professionals, visitors, community members, and those incarcerated persons who are entrusted to our custody and care. The population of employees and incarcerated persons come from a variety of backgrounds, cultures, beliefs, and experiences. This diversity will guide our principles to ensure fair and equitable treatment. To effectively meet the mission of the facility and increase public safety in Delaware County, our agency is invested in promoting and supporting the mental and physical health and wellness of its employees and their families. And we believe that these kinds of initiatives will be long-lasting, far more than an employee referral bonus or any other award or recognition, because we will be truly putting our money where our mouth is and supporting the people who do the work. What drives us? Well, current research offers staggering rates for prevalence of depression, anxiety, substance use, and other psychiatric disorders for those that enter the field of corrections. The physical plant and schedules present career-specific challenges that pose greater threats to the health of employees. Correctional professionals have faced even larger challenges from staffing shortages during a pandemic that posed even greater health risks to those congregate settings. The staff at George W. Hill Correctional Facility provides civil service to the County of Delaware, and we want to invest in those that are serving our community. Healthier employees will effectively manage their responsibilities. So in some of these discovery reviews, on the left-hand side, you can see some of the demographics of George W. Hill employees. So we have 41% are female, 59% are male, and then you can see the age breakdown. On the right-hand side, this might shock you, but this is from Marsh, which is the insurer for Delaware County, our health insurance vendor. And you'll see that the total percentage are all county employed, Delaware County individuals with 22.8% mental health diagnoses, those that are seeking and engaged in treatment. So we know that number is underreported. Hypertension, hyperlipidemia, asthma, chronic pain, diabetes, members with 2 or more conditions, members with 4 or more conditions. And on the right-hand side, you can see the benchmark. And this data is from Marsh again, in their multiple contracts or consumers. We are winning at something that I don't want us to be winning at. So this is why the overall health matters to us. We want to focus on emotional, physical, and financial challenges, working to resolve problems quickly and efficiently, enhance our ability to recruit, retain, and motivate employees, and identify stakeholders in the community that share and support these values. And as you can see, we've started brainstorming with some of our employees who have been able to provide us with some needs, and we've started to identify areas in the community where we might be able to fill those gaps. Miramont Treatment Center is one of them, and I could not believe, I know that I'm new to the area, but even those that weren't new to the area weren't aware that this agency exists in Lima. So we attended the emergency responders training, and this treatment center is down the road, and they have specifically geared training, resources, intervention support, connection to skills building, for first responders, which are a ton of employees within Delaware County at large. So they have HERO, which is helping emergency responders overcome, and they are starting a program called VIPER, which is Valor with Integrity Program for Emergency Responders. And one of the benefits of this is there are a lot of us who have worked in the field of psychology, and we can be pretty good counselors or therapists, but people who work in law enforcement have very, very specific cultural needs or challenges or stressors within their environment. So these professionals know and understand that. So the patient doesn't have to spend the first couple of sessions just explaining what a life is like. And for those of us that work in the institution, to be able to sit with somebody who just gets it means more than most could imagine. So it's incredible that this program exists and that there is a support group for families of emergency responders. You guys are also heroes, those that choose to love us. We don't know why, but we thank you for doing it, because we're not always the easiest people. And then I did write minimal cost to the county, and this is truly just for consideration that I would like to bring these professionals to the facility to do enhanced training with my supervisory staff, so that when we see that an employee might be struggling, we are better equipped and prepared as supervisors to handle that and to be empathetic while still having professional boundaries with our staff and employees. I think that's very important. So that will be a future recommendation that I will propose. So we are going to continue to engage employees through surveys and in-person meetings. We will have an enormous amount of discussion with the executive director, as well as the board and county council, as we learn more. But we have presently identified that there's an organization that provides childcare. They are willing to work with us to provide discounted rates to employees. So we would like to pursue that. Childcare is one of the largest barriers for our employees. And you saw the breakdown, 41% female, 59% male. And within their age range, we have a lot of young parents or parents in general that are working very hard and need some additional support. So we would like to seek investment in finding these childcare opportunities so that there is reliable, safe, and affordable childcare options for our employees. So that does round out my long presentation to you all. And I appreciate if you have any additional questions, comments, or concerns, I would be happy to respond to those before you get to see a new face up here.
Well, I may have been long, but I certainly appreciate the range of outside the box ideas that you're bringing forth. So it's much appreciated.
And I'm glad that you discovered Miramont Treatment Center. Great program. We've been working with Viper for a very long time, and you know, they're very involved in the community, their staff, their leadership, and you know, that's a really good connection. So.
Incredible people, truly. Thank you all. And with no further ado, please welcome Deputy Warden Fally.
Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Good evening, members of Jail Oversight Board. Sean, will you be able to help me out with the next slide? Thank you. So I'm going to go through the next 27 slides, but I'm going to skip a lot of them. So I understand you guys want to go home. And so next one. 3 months ago, we took over George W. Hill, and I set out the program support goal for George W. Hill, which is to provide impactful, best, and promising practices program and services tailored to the short-term jail population to foster strategic partnership, stakeholder for institution programs, services, and to gradually transition our jail population with resources for successful reentry. I also set up a strategic map in which our foundation is. So we want to focus on providing wraparound service delivery, using best practices, specialized program and services. We want to focus on reentry in Africa, and we want to utilize data. To do so, we have to build our capacity. We have to do it inclusively with the other stakeholders, especially Delaware County government, and then we need infrastructure. This is the organizational chart. This is just a refresher from 3 months ago, and I'm going to dive into the report for the month of June. So, key highlights. I'm proud to say that my department is fully staffed. Including hiring a mental health professional. I'm very excited about Paul Dickinson, who's going to be starting. He actually already started on June 5th. And we're going to start implementing groups, mental health groups, anger management, sex offenders, and domestic violence groups. In the month of June, we update our website. So if you guys need any type of information, what does George W. does, what type of program, who should we reach out, please go to the Delaware County website, and you will see our programs and our mission and what we're looking for, and every single department has under program and support. For the month of June, we really focus on strategic partnership. I'm very excited that we were able to secure a $1.5 million for Delaware County. And thank you so much for the Work Development Board and ETSI on the Pathway to Home pilot grant. And Ms. Shaw will talk more about it later on. Thank you so much for the Public Defender's Office. On the next day that you guys will see, we'll be working closer with them to assist our most vulnerable population and provide legal support. We also partner with Widener University with the MSW program, in which they'll do some practicum with our mental health and clinical population. 8 incarcerated persons received their GED last month. That's a lot. We're very excited about that. Thank you, Ms. Krusky and her team. We can confirm that we have some AMT services, and we'll talk about it later on when I talk about the Wealth Path report. Warden talk about our reentry case manager, Jessica Delvicio, for Employee of the Month. She was a one-person team for reentry, and she did a lot of work, and I'm very excited about it, and thank you for your hard work. We enhanced our virtual education programming with Endeavor, which is our tablet-based programming for education. And my program administrator conducted a town hall meeting to figure out what are the needs of the population, and I'll show you guys the data for it. So, as the warden said, our population is increasing. In June, it was 1294. It went down in May, but it significantly increased in the month of June, 1304. And throughout the summer, it will go up until, I believe, October, November, where we'll see a little decline on it. Intake and discharge. Thank you. As many population comes into facility, we're trying to get people out as well. And thank you so much for Director Ruth and his team working closely with the case management team to look at our incarcerated person and their record to see what type of survey would they need to get out of the facility, and what type of survey they'll need for aftercare as well. So I was saying earlier that we conducted a town hall, and during the town hall, my three administrators, Ms. Krusky, Ms. Shaw, and Ms. O'Connor, went to several housing units and conducted a town hall to figure out what type of service and programs do you need. They went to the general population, and out of it, 374 incarcerated persons provided feedback. They came out with 437 suggestions. As you guys can see, the 29% was focused on activities such as open gym, arts and craft, board games. 28% was more focused on soft skill and educational vocational. Only 12%, 50 individual was focused on their substance use treatment and mental health. 21 for reentry, got 15 for religious services. 35 individual was focused on their personal hygiene, about barbering and all that. And then 9 individual wanted some legal help, and then 27 wanted some block rep meeting, in which we're gonna start on Thursday, our first block rep meeting at George W. Hill. Okay. WellPath. Warden covered the COVID test. We had 115 tested positive. What I want to cover for WellPath is 2 things. One is we have 5 total confirmed incarcerated persons who are currently on Suboxone program for the month of June. And that is big, that's new for Delaware County. And I can safely say that we have 3 currently for the month of July. And we want to thank WellPath and Dr. Phillips, who was our MET medical provider, who's doing this service. As you can see from the WellPath services, the majority of the month of May and June, they're pretty much consistent. The majority of the services are focused on sick call and detoxes. As you guys know, we're in jail. The majority of our population suffer from substance use and mental health, so therefore that's where their services are from. They conducted 2,275 visits for detox, 59 chronic care visit, 197 dental visit, 262 visits to psychology, and 115 psychiatrists. The reason I put those numbers is that we want to look at medication. Are our population fully medicated, or do we provide any type of approach? And if you look at the data, our medication is pretty decent. For the month of June, we have 865 people that has some form of mental health, but only 415 has some psychiatric medication. Only half of it. The referral to mental health services increases. Thank you for the mental health liaison for providing those resources. We have 11 to Norristown on the waiting list. We have 6 for the month of June who have some type of 4-2 order, and then we released 7 to inpatient treatment services. Substance use services. PrEP, we extended our PrEP program. For the month of June, we have 19 individuals who participated. I'm sorry, we have 47 individuals who participated in PrEP 1 and 12 who participated in 12-2, and 20 of them were brand new. So people really want to focus on this, on the substance use disorder. When we first started, Narcan distribution was very limited. I believe the number was 47. And since we took over, our Narcan distribution at the time of discharge increased. For the month of June, we have 274. And thank you so much for the Health and Human Services to provide a bulk load for Narcan that will assist us for 3 months. Our drug and alcohol referrals, we're really focusing on that increase, a significant increase to 68 for the month of June. As the jail population increases, remember for the month of June, we have 1304 as the average population. Our case manager has been extremely busy. Thank you, Mr. Snyder and Mr. Lemisroa and your team for providing case management services and also assisting the most challenging population, especially the mental health one, with services to outpatient services. I said earlier, we graduated 8 incarcerated persons with GED. That's a lot. And thank you, Ms. Krusky and Ms. Gilmartin for your work on focusing and pushing the incarcerated person to secure their education. Now, grievances. Now, people are saying, oh my God, grievances, this is a bad thing. In jail, throughout the nation, we have grievances. And if you look at the chart, we had 200 grievances filed, and only 43 were substantiated. But however, if you look at population, we have 1304 individuals for the month of June, but only 144 individuals that filed grievance. That's less than 10% of our incarcerated population that files grievances. And the grievances ranges, out of the 200 that submitted in month of June, only 43 were found friendly. The majority of them were more duplicates because they didn't get the answer right away. So out of it, only 144. For religious services, as Warden indicated, in the month of June, we had 2 loss of life. Reverend Dunn has conducted 9 death notification, which is pretty much a family member that lost a loved one and provide some type of grievance services. We had 81 volunteers, individual volunteers, and 13 service providers that provide some form of service delivery in our facility. And Ms. Shaw will come and talk about reentry and our partnership.
Thank you, Deputy. Good evening, members of the board. 4 more slides to go. The 9th inning. With much excitement, we congratulate the Delaware County Workforce Development Board, who was awarded a $1.5 million Pathway Home Program federal grant to provide training and employment services to adults reentering the workforce following incarceration. The grant will serve 150 incarcerated persons over a 2-year period, both male and female. Thank you, Kate McGeever, Director of the Workforce Development Board, Ray Facone, and Laura Zales of EDSI for taking on the challenge of writing and executing the federal grant to provide George W. Hill with the opportunity. Within the grant, pre-release services at George W. Hill will include a needs assessment, individual development plans, comprehensive case management, career exploration and planning, job preparation, counseling, and assistance with linking incarcerated person to the social services required to help transition back into the community. Post-release activities include linking participants to employers, external service providers, skill building, access to occupational training for in-demand jobs, pathways to earn industry-recognized credentials, and follow-up career support and services. Program participants will be tracked 1-year post-probational period using the PA Department of Corrections database. This will be an opportunity for the institution to utilize a comprehensive tool to track recidivism. And on Friday, we will have our first kickoff meeting with the Delaware County Workforce Development Board, the Department of Labor, and EDSI. In September, we plan on having EDSI on site working with staff on referrals, and by October, we plan on serving our first cohorts, and moving forward, we'll have new participants every 4 weeks. And we have the visitation graph up there. In-person visits were reinstated on June 27th. And in those 4 days, 66 in-persons had the opportunity to schedule a visit. And for the month of June, we had 513 video visits. And for our wellness program, to mitigate the spread of COVID, the majority of the wellness classes took place on the units, where our wellness instructor visited the units. He handed out individual workout plans and did demos rather than have the population travel to the gym. And he continued working with the juvenile population. And for reentry, in June, 12 out of 12 sentenced, released, accepted individualized resource packets, which included 5 COMPASS applications. And our recidivism rate for the month was at 61%, which was up 2% last month from 59%. That's a wrap. Thank you.
Any questions from the board?
Yes, I want to congratulate everybody in moving forward with the MAT and the fact that we finally made some headway with that and increasing the Narcan numbers. That's great. My question for the MAT is where are we at with the therapy that comes with it? So with the IOP and the certified recovery specialists and those programs, because I know with unforeseen circumstances with Crozier, I know some barriers came apart that, we did not, think was going to come into play. So I just wanted to, where's those things falling into line?
So the grant that was awarded to us is under revision right now because of the impacts with the Crozier. So WellPath has agreed that they will hire on a certified recovery specialist that was previously supposed to be funded through the grant initiative in Crozier. We've not identified a person as of late. So we are currently doing medication for opioid use disorder. We are not doing the adjunct therapy for those individuals, but we felt that this was a compelling step to make sure that they were receiving the medical care that is indicated for them in continuation. And it's possible that we'll partner very soon with the addition of the mental health coordinator and or with substance use counselors that work in the building to make sure that we've got these individuals engaged in services.
All right, great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Warden, I think we're pretty far into this meeting, but I would like to dive in a little further on understanding eligibility for that program and how we're doing in terms of expanding for folks who we are losing the terminology, but people who begin treatment under our custody.
During next month's meeting, I think we can give a comprehensive overview, and we hope that we will have had additional individuals engaged within the services. We will talk about the phased approach as well, that we are currently doing continuation of buprenorphine. We are not doing induction yet, but that would be a future initiative, and we'll be prepared next month.
Great. Thank you, Board. Anything else from the board? All right. We are on to any subcommittee reports for today. Hearing none, we go to the next round of public comment. Are there any comments from the public? Any board member comments? Executive Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. county is entering my favorite season of the year, and that's budget season. I think, in talking to the warden, we'd like to bring back the draft budget to the board for review before it's finalized, so that we can get your input and thoughts on what's going to be proposed for the fiscal year 2023 operating budget. So just kind of give you advance notice that that more than likely will be an agenda item for the August meeting.
Thank you, Howard. Anything else from the board?
Yeah, I have a comment. I'd just like to say I really appreciate the reports about the Mike Young, the program for well-being, the program from Deputy Faley and Ms. Shaw, the report on the workforce development, and if Deputy Mastrodi had spoken, she would have been able to speak about all the good work being done by the business side. And my point is that while we do have consultants that have been guiding us and helping us, we have employees on the ground doing lots of work. And it's really, it's showing, and we're making advances. And I just wanted to be clear that we really are putting the people in place to do these jobs. And I appreciate that work.
Thank you, Controller Phillips. Anything else from the board for today? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
We are adjourned.